everyone, and welcome to Maastricht University Live. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Thank you for joining from whatever time zone you are in. I'm Tessa, and today we will be talking about admissions. I am joined by Didier with the Student Services Center and Shucheta from International Business. And although admissions might not be the most sensational topic, it is a very important and pivotal step in any admissions process. So if you want to or are interested in joining and studying a bachelor's at Maastricht University, this is already a great step that you're streaming right now. And we'll talk about the procedures, the different requirements, and get into the logistics and practicalities of studying a bachelor's and the admissions process. So firstly, why are there even different admissions processes why do we do admissions at Maastricht University?
Well, it depends on the program, of course, because you have a lot of people, they want to apply for medicine, for instance, and you only have so many places. So that's why there's a selection, just, to put it very harshly, to get the best possible there is out there. And that's the same for, let's say, international business or psychology, which are the selection programs. And then there are a couple of other programs where they look a bit more at specific skill sets, and those are more like the selective programs. And then you have the matching programs, just to make sure that the students who do apply for the programs, they also have a positive outcome of their matching advice, that they may be suited for this program. Of course, you have to do it first before you know, is this really something for me? But the matching makes sure you get an advice beforehand and just give students maybe a bit less stress about their application in itself. So that's why we have 3 different application processes, basically. And that's actually all I can tell you about the different processes. The step beyond that is making sure that the applications, that we check whether they are equivalent to the Dutch pre-university diploma, and that's where the general application process comes into place. Then you move on with the whole application procedures in itself, and they differ depending on the selection or selective program or a matching program as well. So there are all these small steps you have to make depending on the program you apply to.
So understandably, it can be pretty daunting, and there are nuances and differences depending on what faculty you want to study. But
yes,
the first step would probably be to start with Studiolink, correct?
First step is starting with Studiolink, yes. So that's step 1, what you do. You go to studylink.nl, you make an account, just like you would make a Facebook account. You only make 1, not 2. And when you're at your Studiolink account, you make sure you apply for the right university, so in this case Maastricht University, and for the right program you're interested in. You can apply for up to 4 programs, so that's also with selection programs, and also with the matching programs. And basically when you've done that, you move on to the next step, which is you get login details to the digital portal, which is the digital environment where you can upload your documents. At the end, you will be able to see your timetable if you get in, for instance. But the second step, of course, first is provide us with documentation that we can assess whether your diploma level or to be obtained diploma level is equivalent to the Dutch standard pre-university diploma, which is the VWO diploma. And basically, if you've done that, then it's my job to make sure if I can do the assessment.
Okay.
If I'm not possible to do that at that moment, then I may need additional documentation. And I will always send you a message stating what we need from you. And we move on until we get the right documentation. And then basically the student also moves on to the next step, which is you get a message from us regarding your admissibility, and also based on which diploma you are able to be admitted to the program, and maybe if you need to do additional tests, yes or not, and also with some additional information with website links where you can find some usable information, of course. And then it's up to the student again.
That's a big theme, actually, within the whole admissions process. Is it's very independent, and it's up to the motivation and drive of the student to submit and follow through this whole process. You've summarized it very well, but I think we're going to try to break it down into some more component parts so people who are not familiar with the admissions process can feel it's a little more tangible, a little simpler. So we're going to start with the first interface, which is Studiolink, which you started with. And so first and foremost, Studiolink basically is probably the first Dutch word you learn as an international student. And it is basically a linking students to a study. So that's practically what it does. How would I sign up for that, or how do I start an account with that?
Well, the first step is just go to the website. Because let's say you're somewhere in America. Of course, you go to that website, it's the Dutch website, and you make an account. So the first step is just make sure you get the right email address. So do not use a school email address or from another school, but because if it's closed again, then you're going to get it and run into a bit of problems. Right. So please just use your private email address. Also not from your mother or your father, because we communicate through your email address. Right. So that's the first step. And then of course choose a good password. Make it simple, but not too simple, so you don't forget it. And then you have your own Studiolink account, which is filled with your personal information, which you need to fill out as well. So which nationality do you have, your previous education or the education that you're following. Sometimes it happens that your education or your diploma level is not indicated in the Studiolink database. Then there's always an option to choose other, and you can fill it out yourself, what you're doing. Because of course, we live in a big world. There are multiple educational systems I have not seen yet, or I have not assessed yet. So if you do that, that makes it a bit more easier for us. And as soon as you've done that, you can go to your enrollment applications. And the first step, of course, is then choose the institution you want to enroll at, and then choose your application. You run through that, and as soon as you submit your application, we will receive it, of course. And then within 12 hours or something, you'll get login details to our digital environment, which I talked about earlier. And then basically the whole application process at the university in itself really starts. Okay, and that's when you would get your My portal. That's when you get your portal, yes. And also a message indicating what you need to upload in that portal or what you need to provide us with. And then it's up to us again. And basically that gets the ball rolling, and it either keeps on rolling back and forth, or we're just going to move forward as long as we get all the information that we need. And of course, depending on the diploma you will obtain or you have already obtained, it makes it the process move faster or not. Yeah. That just depends on the educational system. Thank you. So reflecting on when I first made the Studiolink, I remember DigiD or DigiD, digital identification. Yeah. Could you explain what that is? Well, basically within the Netherlands, everybody has a DigiD account because for us, it's a login portal to multiple things like taxes or just checking your study finances, all those kind of things. But also our Studiolink is connected with our DigiD. So we can also log into Studiolink using our DigiD login. When you come to the Netherlands, of course, you have a Studiolink account. And then as soon as you move in here and you register with your municipality, you will normally get a letter with also request a DigiD account. Basically, you can just follow that up just like the same thing that you did with your Studiolink account. The only thing that is necessary is a so-called BSN number, which you will receive from the municipality here, but that takes a few weeks. So as soon as you get that, you can register for your DigiD account and then also connect your Studiolink account with that. So within the future, if you want to apply to another bachelor's program or a master's program, or you just need to re-register, you can use your DigiD to log in. Okay, so what I'm hearing is even if you don't have a DigiD yet, you'll get one once you come to the Netherlands, and you can still apply without one originally, right? And Sucheta, did you have a DigiD?
Actually, I did, because I lived here for a long time already. So I did all my schooling over here, and so I already had one. So I was already having a step ahead, I could say, and then it was easier to set up a Studiolink from that. And
what was your experience with Studiolink?
Sorry. Right. Well, we had a really helpful careers counselor from our school, so she would come around to our mentoring classes, you could say, and she would explain to us how the whole procedure would work. So that was really, really helpful for us, because it sounds very, very complex for us, like you have to sign in here, here, and you just get confused. So it was really helpful, because they said you have to sign in here, And then you select your programs, as you just explained, like you select the programs and do everything. So for me, I was lucky to have quite a smooth transition through the help of the school and everything. And I had many friends who also went through this process who are older, so that was for sure helpful.
That's a good resource for sure, asking friends.
Yeah.
For those of you who do not have a friend who's applying to a Dutch university, if you don't have a DigiID or a DigiD, and you're nervous about the Studiolink procedure, there are instructions on our Maastricht University website, and you can always email study at maastrichtuniversity.nl, and DDA or one of his colleagues will get back to you with information. It looks like, remember, this is an interactive show, so although I've been asking questions from my panel, we will be getting questions also from our audience and hearing some of your questions and posing them to some of our experts. All right, so the next topic we have is admissions and admissions requirements. So let's say I've set up my Studiolink account and I've gone through the programs, I know which program I'm choosing. Then I have to submit certain documents, such as a diploma. Earlier you had mentioned that there's a minimum requirement of a Dutch pre-university diploma. How do you ascertain if different countries, let's say my American diploma, would be sufficient for studying at Maastricht University?
Well, have you heard of NUFIC?
Yes.
Maybe. So basically that's a national organization which has listed a couple of educational systems from worldwide systems, including America, United Kingdom, and you name it. Of course, there are a couple that are in there. So basically what we do then is basically it's a puzzle. We just go on the internet, we check the universities from the home country to see, okay, what are your entry list requirements? And then we can see, okay, they get in with their secondary school diploma. Or maybe they have to do an entrance exam as well. So you move that up to each other, and basically you try to make the puzzle whole, and you assess our system next to their system, and to see whether the higher education for their secondary education is sufficient to get in right away or not. Okay. So that's basically the first step. And then there are a couple other websites that have all the educational backgrounds from the world, so we also use those. But NUFIC is mostly our most important source of information that is important to us. And of course, with the entry requirements that have been set by our own university, and basically with that, all those informations, we just work with that and see whether we can come to a full assessment right away, or whether we need additional information. And that might be information just from the student in itself, or that might be a statement from another university in their home country, a statement from their secondary school. And we try to work with that and then hopefully get the right assessment.
Because Maastricht University is an international university, so you have students from all over the world, so you're quite used to seeing different secondary educations and high school diplomas.
Yeah, of course. I've seen a lot of those actually. It hasn't been that many times that I've seen a diploma where I'm thinking, okay, what is this? Actually, yesterday there was one case, and it was from Russia. So that makes it a bit more trickier. But then if we really can't figure it out, we can always request NUFIC to let them try and figure it out. And it usually takes a couple of weeks. It doesn't happen a lot that we need to do that, but if we need to do that, we will always inform a student that it can take a couple of weeks extra for us to assess their application in itself.
So the students are updated on the process, because it is very much also the student has to provide secondary information or follow up.
Yeah.
And one of those things would also be in subject areas. So certain programs, such as, for example, biomedical sciences, has students produce some sort of evidence of subject proficiency. And for biomedical sciences, this would be mathematics and the natural sciences, so physics, chemistry, and biology. My peer, Kingston, studies biomedical sciences. And how did you handle the subjects in like proving their subject proficiency?
So I had to hand in my diploma. I sent it to the student service center, and they handled everything neatly. Afterwards, they sent me an email saying that I still needed to take physics courses, or at least show that I had some physics education. I didn't have this in my high school, so I still had to opt for the Boswell exam, which is a physics exam in Utrecht. and you can take this exam, I think, for around €100. And if
Okay.
you pass the exam, then you're deemed sufficient for the program.
And you did.
Yes, and I
Good.
did.
Congrats, belatedly.
Well, I think what is important to mention is that you always have to take a lot of time, preparation, of course. There's a lot of people who start at the last minute, and then, of course, that can be a bit daunting. But I started in October with the application process, so
Okay.
it was quite nice.
That is a good tip.
Yes.
So Kingston has what the admissions team would refer to as a subject deficiency, and it is very much, as Kingston reviewed with his own experience, up to the student to rectify that
Yes,
deficiency, and that's what you
definitely.
did. Great.
Definitely.
Good.
Start early.
Yes, and that's a good tip. So one other question that I think is quite common is, you start the applications maybe fall or winter, but not everyone has their diploma until the spring. So does that mean I'm not a good applicant if I don't have my diploma when I apply? How does that work?
No, because it's the same in the Netherlands. You get your you have to do your exams in around May, so you only get to know whether you actually graduated around June, and then you get your diploma July, maybe end of July. So within our system, it is normal for not having your diploma yet while still applying for university. Even though if you have a subject deficiency, of course, you get the time to try and solve that as long as it is before you start your official academic year, which is the 1st of September. Now, there are a couple of programs that have different deadlines, so make sure you check those. It's not all just before the 1st of September. But no, here it's normal, and we do get a lot of students asking us for, okay, but I don't have my diploma yet, I can't apply. Well, not to say that's wrong, you can always apply because we base our assessment on the diploma you are going to obtain. And also with the subjects you have in your last 2 years, for instance. If I take you, for instance, you're a student from America.
Yes.
So normally we request your list of grades from grade 9, 10, 11, and 12. And that's just because we need to know, okay, what kind of subjects did you follow during those 4 years? If I would take that to the Netherlands, it is for us, it's really important what you did the last 2 years, or from Belgium as well. So again, it depends on your educational background, the system in your own country, and the diploma you will get, what we actually need from you. And you don't need to have your diploma already for an application.
And that said, you do request a copy. And when they say copy, they do not mean send us your physical only version of your diploma. Please save that, hang it on your wall, put it in your office when you become a fabulous professional. But the admissions office only needs a certified copy.
Yeah, so again, that is a photocopy, but then certified again by your school or lawyer, someone who is legally allowed to make a certified copy in itself. So don't bring your art piece with you.
Yes.
Like last year, we had a student who brought a painting with them, but it was their diploma.
Oh, wow.
So you go through a whole lot of trouble just to let us see your official diploma, but we just need the certified one.
Got it. And how did you submit your diploma? What was that process like for you?
So basically what I did is you can give some kind of code to my high school, and they basically put this code in there and they submit diploma to Maastricht University. Easy as that.
Well done. That seems really
Yes.
succinct. Yes.
But that's an international baccalaureate diploma, I think.
Yes, some sort of like.
Okay.
Yes.
I had 2 diplomas because I went to an American high school, so I graduated with an American diploma. But then I also did International Baccalaureate, and I don't think I needed both, but I submitted both, just better safe than sorry.
Well, it's good that you chose the International Baccalaureate Diploma, because
Yeah.
if you only chose an American high school diploma, unfortunately, that would not make you eligible to start at Maastricht University.
Because there are additional requirements.
For an American high school diploma, yeah, there are additional requirements, and the minimum additional requirements are 3 advanced placement exams
Yes.
with a minimum score of 3. But of course, you did the International Baccalaureate program next to that, so lucky you.
Yes. And if someone like Kingston had, let's say, doesn't have a certain number of A levels from their UK exams, or doesn't have 3 APs with a score of 3, it's up to them to rectify that and perform and take that exam. How would you demonstrate that?
Well, we got a lot of students who they apply, but for instance, they have 2 AP exams.
Okay.
Normally, they usually send us an email beforehand because they've seen the entry requirements, so then we will be able to inform you on our normal general admission requirements, which unfortunately they are 3 advanced placement exams.
Yes.
So that still means you can apply for an additional AP exam even though you did not follow the classes throughout those years. If you pass the AP exam with a 3, then you make the entry A requirements.
Right.
So of course that is an option you can do. It's the same with the GCE levels or the EAS levels. That is possible as well. But not all students, they chose the 3 A levels or the 3 AP exams. So that makes it a bit tricky sometimes for students. Also, when you are following your secondary education and then during your last year you get to hear, oh, I still have to take an additional A level and I did not study for that at all, so that maybe that gets the stress levels a little high. But unfortunately, those are the minimum requirements.
Right. And as Kingston said, I think your tip is really useful. Start early.
Yes,
right?
definitely.
Because then if you find out about this admissions requirement in the fall and the exams are in the spring, you have time to
Yes.
adapt to that. Yeah.
Yes, definitely time to prepare,
Mm-hmm.
gather your materials, and prepare to go to Maastricht, of course,
Yes.
right?
There are other steps along the way. But before we get into those, it is an interactive discussion. You are at Maastricht University Live, and it looks like we have a question from our audience. So it seems to be something similar, but I think Didier, you would be an expert on this. The question is, I graduate in May, and in June, I will get my A-level exam results. So can I send predicted scores?
Yeah, each year we have the same, I would not say problem rising from students who are following the A-level curriculum. So you only get your results around the 15th of August,
Right.
at least from what I can remember. Of course, last year that was totally different due to the COVID situation. So students, they normally get their predicted results or the provisional results. Now, we can't use your provisional results because it does not state final results. So if your provisional results are, for instance, like 3 C's,
Yes.
and your final results are 3 D's, and you're already in Maastricht, you booked your apartment, we can't admit you then, because legally we just can't, because you do not have the VBO, the pre-university equivalency that is necessary to start your studies at Maastricht University. So in this situation, we always request a statement from their school indicating their final results, and normally you would be able to get that before the 1st of September.
Okay.
So I would say don't stress about that. If your school does not want to make a statement, such as, we have a format which we can send to you via email, and then your school is able to fill out that format.
Okay. So for the audience member who submitted that question, or for any of you who have a similar question, keep contact with the admissions office. So if you're in that situation like that, email study@maastrichtuniversity.nl, and you can be in a dialogue about those predicted scores and get the proper information.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. There's also live chat, also telephone.
Yes.
So there are multiple options just to contact us, and even if you're just in a bit of doubt, better be safe than sorry.
Yeah, sounds good. It looks like we have one more question we'll take on this topic from the audience. For a U.S. degree, the requirements listed on our website says that you require a U.S. high school degree and 1 year of university education. Would you also accept AP courses completed in high school instead of 1 year of college?
No, we don't accept the AP courses in itself. You really have to take the AP exam. So if you're in your high school and you're following your AP courses, and you can do the AP exam, of course, with the knowledge you already attained during those 4 or 2 years usually. Make sure you take the AP exam. If you pass it and you get your 3 exams with a minimum of 3, you make the general admission requirement. If that's not the case, then with an American high school diploma, apply to a university in your home country and do a first year of a bachelor's program. Now, the successfully complete year 1 of your bachelor's program does not successfully complete as being you can go on to the second year. It really means you have to have attained all credits and pass all courses during that first year.
Okay.
So there are 2 ways, for instance, with an American high school diploma, there are 2 ways to get in. The one is with the AP exams additionally, and the other one is with a successful completion of year 1 of a bachelor program at an accredited university.
Okay.
So that does not have to be in America, for instance. You can also go to university in Denmark. As long as it's internationally accredited, it's okay for us.
Okay. Sounds good. So there are some options. Moving on to some other practical matters. The university uses rolling admissions. So that opened up October 1st for the academic school period of fall 2021. So the benefit is to apply as early as possible and you hear back soon. What does rolling mean in terms of admissions?
Well, for us, it means actually, we always advise students apply as soon as possible, as soon as you're able to. And the applications, they open 1st of October on Studiolink. So the sooner you apply, the sooner you get an answer whether you're in principle admissible, yes or not. So in my situation, so for as in my job, we always try to get the applications that came in on, for instance, let's say during the weekend. We always try to get an answer for the students on either Monday or Tuesday, for instance.
Wow.
But of course, that is whether you already upload all the documents that we needed to assess your application, and then we can give you the definite answer on whether you're admissible, yes or not. Now, if that's not the case, you'll get a reminder from us stating a document that, okay, this is what we still need from you. One other situation is that, for instance, when you apply, but you do not upload documents, because unfortunately it happens a lot. Student applies, but they don't already have a transcript, for instance. So that means you get an automatic reminder that you need to upload those documents, and after 7 days you get another one, and then another one, and then we stop, actually, because if we don't hear from you for 4 to 3 weeks, then the responsibility is up to you. If you upload a document, you come back in the circle again to make it fairly simple. So in this situation, my advice would be apply as soon as possible and make sure you already have at least a copy of your passport and a transcript.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I got a few of these reminder emails, but since I'm sitting here today, I clearly responded, and I did it myself. I didn't have my parents or a counselor do it. I vividly remember sitting in the office of my aunt's room and furiously typing away at the computer. Kingston, do you recall what it was like following the deadlines and getting these emails and then being told you have a subject deficiency?
Well, I panicked in the beginning first. Yeah. I did not know what these emails were. They sent me an email like, you have to upload this, this, and this. And I thought, will I be rejected or something? So I was panicking. I sent a lot of emails to the admission office. I actually bombarded them with emails. And then they said, okay, Kingston, you can calm down. These are automatic emails. You just need to upload your documents, and then you can ignore those emails. And when we solve everything for you. So that was afterwards for me was quite okay. So don't panic when you see those emails. At least it does not mean that you're rejected or anything. It just means you need to upload something.
Yeah, it simply is a reminder.
Yes.
And it looks like we have another question from our audience. So, if I already applied to Portal, what's the next step after paying the handling fee? So I think they're at the end of their application process. Am I correct?
No, it's not really the end. This person is going through Studiolink and then has been requested to pay the handling fee of 100 euros. And has already paid the handling fee, and then you move on to the next step, which in this situation for us is we will see you in our kind of like workflow, and then we will try to assess your application. So in this situation, it's a bit of a waiting period for the student before we have assessed his or her file.
Okay.
If in the opinion of the student it is taking too long, just make sure you take action and just contact us, and then we will see if something is going wrong, yes or not, or if there's still something missing. Sometimes it is that the handling fee hasn't been processed by the financial or the financial department, for instance. We can check that for you.
Okay. Sounds good. So you'll have to be a little bit patient during this period, but the admissions team is working on it.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, and now we're going to get into the different types of selection and placement. So as you mentioned in the beginning when you gave your very nice summary of the entire admissions procedure, one thing is that there are different selection procedures for different programs for different faculties, and there are 3 main ones. You have numerus fixus, which means limited capacity. There's a fixed number. This could be due to high popularity of a program, limited capacity, and there's one procedure for numerus fixus programs. And then there is selective programs. So this is for students who are highly motivated. They have to demonstrate high level of interest for the specific program they're applying for. And then for the rest of the programs, there's matching. And that helps students to see helps the university and the students to see if they are appropriate or compatible for each other.
So basically it's an advice that the student gets whether you're appropriate for the student for the program, yes or not.
Yeah. We're going to talk about numerus fixus first, and I'm joined by Sucheta because you applied for a numerus fixus program, and that was international business?
Yeah. I did that for last academic period, so this is my second year,
Mm-hmm.
and I went through this whole process for the numerous fixes. So, of course, like we talked about, like first I already had a DGID,
Mm-hmm.
then I went on to log into Studiolink, and of course, international business, because it's numerous fixes, I thought maybe I should have backups, so that's of course other universities, and so on. And then I looked at what you need. And the first thing, like you guys were talking about, constantly start early. That is a big thing because you never know what might happen. So when you do the numerous fixes, there's many things required. So of course you need your normal identity, all that stuff, but you also need to give in international classroom essay. Now that's the new process, which is like will be applicable for the current students who are prospective students.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I had to do just a motivation letter, so it had a different name,
Mm-hmm.
but the idea is kind of similar, I would say, because you just you have to explain why you're motivated for this course, because when you're doing numerous fixes, it's very important to have a concrete reason to join. You can't just be like, okay, I'm just gonna go for it.
Yeah.
You want to know where you're gonna go, why you want to do this, why you think you're suitable for the course. That's very important. And of course, what you might want to do in the future and your outlook on the world and this course. So one thing that really I found interesting is while doing it, like at first you're like, oh, okay, that's what they want. But also while I was doing it, I learned a lot of things about myself, which was really helpful. It helped me, like, you know, there's certain questions, the way the questions are set up, it really helped me look inwards and really think. You can't just write, oh, I want to do it because it sounds nice. No, you really have to look inwards and think, why would this suit you, what you want to do, what changes you want to make, and how you are as a person. That really helps you reflect. So that was really helpful for me, and of course for the university as well. You also need a CV. And along with the CV, you need like a lot of supportive documents, because you can't just make claims in the CV and be like, okay, that's it. You have to back your claims up. So backing it up, that's one thing, like giving supporting documents. That's why I said start early, because you do not want to be running around at night, especially now it's harder maybe because of COVID, but like running around to family, friends, or anyone who you need a sign from for anything you claimed in the CV. It's really difficult to run around. It's just a lot of stress you could save by applying early or starting the process early, for sure. But yeah, so that's mainly the extra bits. I would say that you have to hand in a classroom essay.
Okay.
And yeah, so that's a thing that's remained constant. And of course, it's really important that when you're giving the classroom essay, it has to be approved by the committee who's looking at this paper. Because if it's not to the standards, then they will reject your whole application. They won't look at your grades or anything. And in this case, you explain, like, you look at the grade of the last 2 years. I did the International Baccalaureate, and also the Dutch schools, you need the latest 2 years. But what you could have had, like, the best grades, but if your essay or your motivation letter, like, your motivation does not show in the letter, or your international mindfulness, then you just don't make the cut.
Yeah.
So of course that really isn't a good thing for you, but that's why I would encourage you to really give yourself the time. Like, people who are signing up, give yourself the time to think about what you want to write. You know, if you don't give yourself the time, you're smashing away and then you don't know what you're trying to say, you know. And another thing is, because it's numerous fixes, a lot of things, each year sometimes the number changes of student intake.
Yes.
Because what they had last year is they had 800 students. So for the academic year of 2019 to 2020, when I entered, they had a total of 1,300 applicants, but they only could take in 800 students.
Right.
So luckily I got into that, because also another thing with the essay is that if you make the cut, then only will you be able to see the ranking number on your Studiolink. So you have to make sure to keep an eye on the Studiolink. But that's from 2 weeks after you hand in the application. So application goes in 15th of January, and then around April, you get a answer, and then from there, in 2 weeks, actually I was wrong. So from there on, 2 weeks, you get to decide what you want to do, if you want to accept or not.
Okay.
So yeah.
But hopefully, if you wrote such a convincing motivation letter as to why you want to study at Maastricht University, you will happily accept.
Yes, of course.
That is the hope.
That is the hope, yes, of course. And it's just, this year I think what they've done, what I've read about, is they increased the intake to 875 instead of 800.
Okay.
Of course, don't be like, oh, they're taking more, so I can be chill. But no,
Right.
that just means that more people are going to have the same mindset, and more people are going to, you're just going to have more difficulty if you don't pay attention.
But you
So,
gave
yeah.
some tips to the audience.
Mhm.
So overviewing in your motivation letter, what have I done? What am I currently
Mm-hmm.
doing? And what do I want to do in the future?
Uh-huh.
And why will this program help me with this? But then also, you were talking about how you're not just trying to sell the university as to why they should take you, but as to why you want them, but as to why they should take you too.
Yeah,
So
what
it's a
do you
two-way
bring to
street.
the table?
Yeah,
That's what
exactly.
you're trying to show. And one thing to keep in mind, it's not like, every bit, if you're like, oh, okay, so if my CV is a little weak, I got to make my essay much better. Actually, the thing is, each one has equal weightage. So it's each one, I think it's a CV, and then the support document, your grades, and the essay you write all have the equal percentage of weightage. So you have to really make sure to put equal attention to each one.
Yeah. But it wasn't always this holistic, I think. Earlier, in the good old days, there used to be just based on performance, right? And then there was a transition to evaluating other criteria. Is that correct?
Then we have to go back a few years. It was also before my years, actually.
Okay.
But then it was more really selection based, and then based on the grades that you obtain.
Right.
Of course, instead of all these additional documents that they now use to make sure they find the right student, and not just based because you got straight A's. That means you're
Right.
you're a straight A student, okay? But how's your motivation? Is it still okay or not?
Yeah.
And that differs for the numerous fixes programs. Like for instance, with her, she applied for international business and had to provide all the selecting supporting documents. Psychology and medicine, they are also the numerous fixes programs, but they all have a different procedure basically. So the procedure with the numerous fixes and the ranking, that one is the same, but the things that you need to do beforehand, those differ a bit.
Right.
Yeah.
So as to the students at home, make sure you check the website for your specific program and really read up upon what you need to do. What do you need to provide?
Yeah, another thing I'd like to quickly add
Sure.
is basically one thing to keep in mind is when you're writing the motivation letter, slash now it's called the classroom essay, so don't mind me when I say motivation letter, that's just me from back in my days when I went in. But one thing is you have a limit to each question, 250. So it's advised to keep it at 200. But basically the thing is, at first I was like, oh no, only 250, how are you going to do that? But actually in a way it's really good in the long term, not only because it's easier to read for whoever's looking at it, but also because it really helps you sum up and write in concrete letters. Like, it doesn't give you space to beat around the bush. You have to be really direct and be clear in what you want. And when you're trying to narrow down your thoughts, it really helps you know what you really, really want. And it just, it's really handy and helps you look inwards, like I said. So
Yeah, so Sucheta's advice in terms of being concise and reviewing why you're motivated is good advice for anyone who's interested in psychology, health sciences, or international business. We also have a different type of selective programs, which are the selective programs, not to be confused with numerous fixes, although they are both selective and look at a range of admissions criteria. The example of faculties that require this type of admission would be the new Global Studies program, Economics and Business Economics, Maastricht Science program, University College Venlo, and University College Maastricht. I applied to University College Maastricht, and among some of the criteria and requirements that Sucheta mentioned for international business, there was also an interview. And I actually appreciated having the different forms of assessment because it almost gave me greater opportunity to show myself on paper, like what are my grades and numbers, that's one thing. To show what I've done in the past is another thing. To write the motivation as to why I want to go to UCM, but then also to have the opportunity to talk to a staff member of the faculty I want to study at and not only for he or she to ask me questions, but gave me the opportunity to ask them questions. So I know it can be a bit daunting if you're interested in a numerus fixus or selective program, but it also gives you great opportunity to sell yourself and get to know the program.
What kind of questions do they ask you during the interview? Because, of course, I do the general admissibility,
Yeah.
but what the colleges do with the interview, I don't specifically know what kind of questions you get. So is it like a job application, or do you really need to sell yourself?
So I think they try to make you as comfortable as possible. They will ask you hard questions such as, why do you want to study at University College
That's a perfect
Maastricht?
one, yeah.
But once they get past those, it's like, what are you actually interested in studying and why these programs? And the programs that are selective, I think a lot of them are interdisciplinary or have different components and require an extra level of motivation and interest. So not that other programs don't require motivation and interest. I don't want it to sound like that. But for me, my interviewer asked why international relations and why can't you just do that at the Faculty of Arts and Sciences? Why do you need to go to UCM to do that? So I had to kind of show my case for that. And then I think I was also asked some questions like, if I was a food, what would I be? Just to keep it lighthearted and see how creative and on the feet you are, because you can prepare some questions and it's definitely good to do that, but they also are interested as you as a person and getting to know you.
Yeah, so it's a bit more personal than just, the distance between you and the computer and the person at the other end, the other end of the computer. Okay.
Yes. And then there's also matching. So that's for all the other faculties that we haven't mentioned thus far. So the faculties that aren't selective or numerus fixus, and you can figure out what program you're interested in and what correlating type of admissions they use based off the website. But before we go into matching, we have another question from our audience. And if you're not comfortable submitting a question directly right now, you can always send up follow-up questions, or if you think of something that you forgot to ask during the live show, just email us at study@maastrichtuniversity.nl.
Yeah.
Or you can go to our website just for general information for a lot of the things we're discussing, which is maastrichtuniversity.nl/SSC, which stands for Student Services Center. So the question we have for the audience is, what's a binding study advice? So I think this will come up as we talk about matching. So Kingston, you did matching.
Yes, definitely. So I applied in 2018 for the biomedical science bachelor. And in this bachelor, most of the time they will send you a matching questionnaire first. So you have to fill it in, what are your interests, and then you also have to do a little case. And what do I mean by little case? They will give you some kind of story, like biomedicine, so for example, nutrition or coronavirus or some kind of other virus, and you have to answer the questions just to assess and to see if you're interested in the subject. I really like this matching because it really helped me to reflect, is this the right choice for me? Am I applying to the right program? Because it's quite a big decision applying to university,
Yes.
right? So that's what I really liked. I also applied for law in 2019 or 2020. And this way they also sent me the same questionnaire, but for law.
Of course.
And because I also wanted to be prepared, I also booked an appointment with the study advisor. So you also talk to them face to face. What is it like to be studying at the Faculty of Law, and other things, matters as well, practical matters. I think that's the best way to prepare yourself, gather information yourself.
So what is the purpose of the matching procedure?
Well, from what I've always understand, is that the purpose of the matching procedure is just firsthand for the faculty to see whether, okay, is this student really interested in a program that he or she chose based on the questions that they will ask you. But at the other hand, also, when you get the outcome, so the result of that, and you get a positive result, that the faculty in itself and the person who basically reviewed your matching questionnaire thinks that you're a good fit for the program, makes, of course, your motivation even a bit higher. And even if the outcome is negative, you still have the option, okay, I still want to continue with this program because I do think that I am a good fit for this program, but I do want to be honest with you. And so I think that's more like their point of view regarding the matching questionnaire at this moment.
Okay. So that does answer the question, what is negative study advice, right? So
No, actually, negative binding study advice is something different than the matching questionnaire in itself. It does have something to do with programs that have a matching questionnaire, but also a couple other programs. So basically, in your year one, you can get 60 European credits awarded. But there's a minimum of credits that you need to obtain. So let's just say the minimum of credits for European law school. Do you still remember that, Kingston?
It's 40.
It's 40. So let's say you got a 38. Unfortunately, that normally means you can't go on to the second year because you did not attain all of the credits that were necessary to go on to the second year, which means you get a negative binding study advice. In other words, that means you cannot study European law school anymore at Maastricht University for a couple of years. I do not know by heart how many years it is, but I think it's 6.
So study.
Yeah, so
study, definitely.
So in a nutshell, that's negative binding study advice. Yeah, unfortunately, if you get it, of course, it's not a nice situation to be in. But then it also means that, okay, maybe you did make the wrong decision. And maybe that matching questionnaire, if the outcome was negative, has shown maybe that the faculty was right. Or
Right.
at the other way around, if it was negative and you can go on to the second year, you showed them something else.
Yes.
So yeah, that's binding study advice, actually.
Yes.
I do not know whether this year that is going to be there due to COVID. I think the last year they did not use the binding study advice in the whole of the Netherlands. But don't keep me up with that because I'm not 100% sure.
But you don't have to worry about that just yet. Let's first focus on getting into the programs, and hopefully you try your best to get as many credits as possible no matter what, and you'll be updated by the time that comes around. And for you, matching was quite successful.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
It helped me reflect on my abilities as well. I also talked to a study advisor just to be prepared for the program, what is to come, right? Because the university is quite different than high school. When you start university, there's a lot of things coming up of you. So you definitely want to be prepared for that.
Yes.
Definitely.
I have a roommate who actually was advised not to do his program based off the matching. He had done one study, but then was interested in doing law as well. But now he's doing law and loves it. So, sometimes it can be very indicative and sometimes not. But again, ultimately, this is the theme, I think, in the admissions procedure. It is really up to the individual, your motivation to, follow through, to pursue, to fulfill the deadlines, and to try your best and make it work.
Yes.
Yeah.
What I'd like to add is
Yeah.
the matching, of course, is like a screenshot. If it does say negative, it doesn't mean that you can't do it.
Right.
Yes.
It's like your driver's license.
Yes. It's like
You don't pass it the
taking a
first
picture
time,
of
take it the
someone,
second time.
I think we have another question from the audience. It is, the handling fee is not a good thing for poor people or those who are financially disadvantaged. Is there any way to take this handling fee out, or is there any way to circumvent this?
Well, there's one possibility, and that's requesting an exemption.
Okay.
The exemption is based upon a couple of criteria that you need. Well, let's just say you're a scholarship student, for instance, or
Okay.
you're a refugee student. Then maybe that is one of the criteria that you can use to request an exemption. Of course, that will be assessed by the department that that has to perform the assessment on that account. So if it's a scholarship or a refugee, then it would be our scholarships office. So an exemption form is one possibility. Now, to get in on the handling fee, and of course for students who are less fortunate with their financial circumstances, I understand that situation. But if you get into the program, the handling fee will be taken off from your normal tuition fee. And the tuition fee is something that you do have to pay. So the mindset around the 100 euros of handling fee and the tuition fee, of course, it's a big difference. And we understand the situation. It's also the first year that we're actually doing this. So don't hold me accountable for how long it will be here or who made the decisions. That's not up to us. But basically, that's how it works. If you feel like I cannot pay it or I should be exempted from this, file the exemption form and we will assess it.
Okay, so we'll try to make it work, sounds like. Yes.
We will try to make it work, but we cannot go around the rules to make it fairly
Right.
simple.
So email directly and explain your situation, and they will be in contact. Another question. For numerous fixes, what's the deadline to upload the motivation letter or international classroom essay? This person is interested in studying bachelor's in science for psychology.
Well, I do not know a specific deadline time in this. The deadline that is most important for psychology is the 15th of January deadline for 2021. if you do not apply before the 15th of January, unfortunately, it's a no-go. You can't go on. As long as you make sure you apply before that specific date, and we were able to assess your application as well during that time, then the Faculty of Psychology will inform you about the essay or the selection criteria you have to perform. And then they will also provide you with a specific deadline on which you need to make sure that you fulfilled all the supporting documents before that deadline. The deadline also differs each year, so I do not know what deadline it is this year. Only thing I do know, of course, it is after the 15th of January, depending on what kind of documents you have to provide them with.
Yeah, so it's not only different per program, but it can also change year to year. Also, the number of students they accept can change year to year, just as Sucheta had said. So it's very important you check the information on the website and find those deadlines. And because you are ultimately the person who is responsible for fulfilling them, you can ask questions. The university will help you. They do want you to have a successful admissions process, but it's up to you to make those deadlines. You can ask your mom to help remind you, but she cannot be the one to submit them for you.
If you want to have additional information on what the specific selection criteria are for this year regarding those documents, you can contact the Faculty of Psychology in itself, because they are the ones who are performing the selection. So that's not our institute, that's not the Student Services Center. So just make sure you contact them then.
Okay.
If you can't figure out the contact details, you can email study@maastrichtuniversity.nl and we'll help you with the contact details of the right person.
So if I have general questions in terms of diplomas and subject proficiencies, I would go to Student Services Center.
Then you go to the Student Services Center.
But then if I have specific questions about my selection process, about an interview, or about a matching procedure, that's done through the specific faculty.
That's done through faculty,
Okay,
yes.
that's a good clarification to make. We have no other questions at this time, but remember that you can always submit them and we'll be happy to answer them. And for those who are not answered live, someone will follow up with you individually. So moving on, but we can review one more time just the overall process, because we started with the summary, we broke down the components, but maybe we can just wrap it up. I think what we didn't say at the beginning is that the first thing you have to do is to reflect. Are you qualified for Maastricht University? And are you ready to go to Maastricht University? Because you cannot defer. Is that correct? Let's say I apply now and I get in and, but I also want to do a gap year. Can I just go for 2022?
To put it very harshly, no.
Yeah.
Of course, if you apply this academic year and you get a positive outcome of that and you still decide in August, no, I don't want to come, you have to apply again for the next academic year then, of course. And the admission requirements, they may differ each year as well, because we will assess the requirements and we will publish new ones around the end of July or something on the website. If it did not differ from the year beforehand, of course, when you file an application, you as a student, you would know, okay, I am admissible to this program because I already have my diploma, etc. But if you're looking selection-wise, then it may be a problem, because if there are more students who are applying and they are better than you, to put it that way, or highly motivated, then maybe you do not have the chance that you've gotten the previous year. Of course, it's different as well, because if you get into international business, for instance, and you get your ranking number, you accept your placement, you've been accepted, but during the year something happens or whatsoever, then you can contact your faculty to see whether you can keep the ranking number for the next academic year. But you will always have to contact the Student Services Center and the faculty in itself, and then we can check if we can do something for you. But normally, when we're looking at a matching application or a selection, a selective program, you do have to file a new application, and it's not guaranteed that your placement is still there for the next academic year.
So the best idea would to reflect even before you start the application. Do I want to go to university next year? Am I qualified at this point? Do I want to take a year off to work? That should happen. Probably may be easier to think about that ahead of time, to start with a reflection.
Yeah, and else it's a risk you take, and
right.
Then of course if you're fully behind that, taking a gap year, you should do it and then apply it again next year, but then just see what happens.
Yep, sounds good. I I think it takes a lot of reflection to choose whether or not you go to university, and it's totally normal to be nervous or to have some cold feet. But if you have a strong passion to go sailing the seas, or shadow someone at a business, and you want to defer for university for a year, know that you have to wait to apply afterwards, and that be the simplest solution.
Because in Kingston, you're studying 2 programs right now, right?
Yes, exactly.
But the first year you studied 1 program, and then
Yes.
during your second year you're studying 2 programs, right?
Yes.
What would it have been for you if you studied the 2 programs at the same time when you came to Maastricht as a foreign student?
It would have been a disaster, honestly, because I made a lot of decisions based on my talks with the study advisor. Doing 2 programs is definitely something you want to think about beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
It is a big decision, of course. You have to accept that you will incur study delays, that your workload is higher than average. So a lot of my peers, they're having fun whilst I'm studying.
But nobody's having fun right now anyway.
Yes, indeed, because of COVID. But that's definitely something to take into account. Also, scheduling is maybe a bit difficult sometimes. Some courses I move to the next year. So I'm definitely taking into account that I will incur study delays. Because
And study delay would be, it takes longer to graduate than would be normal for your
instead
program.
of, for example, 2 programs separately would be 6 years. I'm maybe taking 6 years for these 2 programs.
Even though you're taking them simultaneously.
Yes. Because it's if you would do everything at the same time, of course, that you would go bananas if you would do that.
I know, I cannot imagine. What course, one faculty is enough for me. But once you've reflected and you figured out, I want to do this program, you have to start taking action, right? So first thing was to sign up on Studiolink.
Yes, so first step, of course, Studiolink, and then the second step, it's uploading the documents.
But you get that through my UM portal, right?
Yeah. So you log into the UM portal, you upload the documents, so that makes sure that the SSC admissions that we're able to see the documents. Then also we can assess the documents, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And if we are unable to assess the documents or we need additional documentation, you'll get a reminder from us, and that will be sent through Studiolink, but that will also appear in your personal email box from your private email account, which you
We're
use.
familiar with those reminder emails. Yes.
So which you use,
Don't panic.
which you use to set up your Studiolink account. Make sure you check your spam folder, of course, because a lot of students, they put it in a spam folder, and then when it's September, we get emails. I didn't get in, of course. Unfortunately,
Because you didn't fulfill the procedure,
yes. But let's just take the positive. So student, they upload all the documents that we need. Now, if that's the case, you'll get a message from us, also via Studiolink, indicating that in principle you're admissible based on your specific diploma. If there are subject requirements, those will be listed as well.
Mm-hmm.
Also, if it needs to be at a specific level or grade, we will list that in the admissible note as well. So the admissible note you'll receive, that's very important, because based on that one, you can be admitted to a bachelor's program at Maastricht University. And then we move on to the next step. Well, depending on whether you're at a numerous fixes program or a selective program or a matching program, of course, it differs what you need to do. Some students, they still need to upload the selection documents. Other students, they need to do the matching and so forth. But let's take that as the next step, to put it simple.
Mm-hmm.
So then it's up to the student to, of course, get your diploma, obtain it. Make sure your fully focus is set on obtaining your high school diploma, or in some situations, making sure that you pass year 1 of the university successfully. Or maybe you only have to do a couple of exams, but you already fulfilled grade 12 in the previous year.
Or rectifying a study deficiency.
Or rectifying a studying deficiency, yes.
And there are sometimes additional documents for internationals, especially those who are outside of the EU. I remember having to scan birth certificates and passports.
Yes, that would probably be for your visa then.
Yes,
I think.
yes.
Yeah.
But that was really nice because although I had to supply the documentation, I was told exactly what I needed, and the university handled that for me. So once I arrived, I received my residence permit, and it was really great that the university could handle that for me. But I think you bring up a good point in terms that we've tried to bring up, I think, all in our own ways. Sucheta, Kingston, Didier, like all the facts that it's a long process. You have to get started early. You might encounter things that you don't expect, but all in all, it takes a lot of motivation, organization, and independence. And these are all values that students at Maastricht University have and practice in all their studies throughout their university education. So whether or not you do a selective program or not, the admissions process is kind of a form of selection and gets you ready for life at Maastricht University. What'd you say?
If you would summarize it like that, then I would definitely agree with it. Yes.
Great.
And of course, we also have the deadlines of application, so you could see that as a selection as well. And also with handing in specific type of documents, like what Kingston had to do is solve a deficiency in physics, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
You have to provide us with the official exam result of that as well, depending on which organization you took the exam from.
Yes.
In your situation with the visa, you are in contact with the visa office as well on what you need to do, and that runs next to the admission procedure. Basically, I don't see that what you're doing, but you still have to do it.
Right.
And in the university, we all have different departments, like the admission office, visa office, scholarships office, and we all handle the same application basically. So next to maybe your admission application, the student is also dealing with a scholarship and a visa. So that takes even more responsibility for the student.
Yes.
To make sure that you plan everything correctly and also take every deadline into account. What I also would like to say is that each program has its own website, of course, and its own admission requirements and its own admission registration steps. Make sure you look at all those steps, because in those steps, those are the deadlines that are indicated there. Those are very important.
Yes.
For international business, of course, it's a numerous fixes program. Every deadline there is important. If you miss a deadline, it's hard to say, but it's tough luck.
Yeah.
And it's the same for medicine, and it's the same for psychology. If we're looking at Kingston with a subject deficiency, and he's studying biomedical sciences, but he could also have studied medicine, for instance.
Yes.
Then solving a subject deficiency for medicine has a different deadline than the biomedical sciences deadline. So as a student, make sure you're not thinking, okay, well, the deadline for digital society is this one. It's the same for biomedical sciences. No, it doesn't work like that.
Right.
So make sure you check the website thoroughly.
And it's indeed multifaceted, and there's different layers and depending on the program. But I think one of those layers is English proficiency, and we actually have a question about that. It is, I'd like to ask about Ielts. For example, if I wish to apply at UCM and my Ielts score isn't issued yet, can I attach it after January 5th?
Well, my first advice would be make sure you contact the UCM faculty in itself to make sure they know that you're attaching the result after a specific amount of time. I think the ultimate deadline is as you will need to have the IELTS test with the score that is necessary. So if I remember correctly, it's a 6.0 for IELTS, at least before the start of your academic year. So if you're starting in February, it means that you have to have it at least before the 31st of January, and with this September, at least before the 31st of August.
All right. But for that student, you can send that specific question to UCM, and I think they also have some breakdowns of the English proficiencies on there. Otherwise, for the students who are interested in applying, you can send your questions, the more general questions, to study@maastrichtuniversity.nl. We're really glad you were here. You're taking the right step, just being interested, to meet the deadlines, to check the websites, to stay in contact, check your email, personal email, and hopefully I'll see you in Maastricht University in the coming years. Didier and Kingston and Sucheta, who's in the back. Thank you so much for joining me, and everyone have a good night. For the Americans in the audience, happy Thanksgiving.